Okay, so welcome to this SAP UI5 walkthrough tutorial. So as part of this SAP UI5 walkthrough tutorial, I use Cursor AI to generate a Quickstart project from scratch, and this video also will highlight the difference between traditional coding and AI powered development and how you can use Cursor AI to learn faster. So let's get into the introduction and walkthrough. We have about 38 steps that we are going to be carrying out, and so some lessons will be short introductions, while others we will go in depth, so you try to understand what's actually happening behind the code. So even if you are new to JavaScript, you will be able to follow through. And so this is not just another copy and paste tutorial. We will be using Cursor AI. So this is an AI powered assistant that will help us fix bugs in real time, and also to write cleaner codes, understand tricky concepts faster. So I'll show you how to use the Cursor AI alongside your programming to enhance productivity. And if you don't have Cursor AI already installed, you can just go on Google and say Cursor AI, and then you can just follow the installation procedure. You can try the free trial. Yeah, I already have an account, so just follow the procedure how to download Cursor AI. Use a free plan, click on pricing. See, we have free plan here. You can just download for Windows or Mac OS. Alright, so the reason for this is whenever you get stuck or you don't understand a piece of code, you can simply ask the Cursor AI for an explanation, and that way you don't just follow the walkthrough, you actually learn how SAP UI5 works. So this is you using AI for higher productivity. And so by the end of this series, we are going to go through all these topics here, starting from the initial setup, which is ready, steady, go, and then we go through the walkthrough, write the hello world, write the hello SAP UI5, do bootstrap, throws, XML views, controllers, you understand modules, you understand JSON model, and all the way down to building your application. So that is what you'll know at the end of this series. You will build your own SAP UI5 application with components, with views, with controllers, with data binding, models, with routing, and so much more. So if you're excited to learn and become more productive with SAP UI5 and also using Cursor AI alongside your coding for more productivity, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also turn on the notifications, and let's begin the process together. Going into the step one, which is the ready, setting up the environment. And the step one is all about getting ready before we can build anything in SAP UI5. Before we can build anything in SAP UI5, we need a proper environment. So I want to assume now that you have the Cursor AI installed, and so you can create a folder on your desktop. So let's create a folder, new, and then folder, so let's call it SAP UI5 walkthrough demo. Okay, so then you go ahead and open your Cursor AI after you have installed. So now we have the Cursor AI open, and what we need to do next is to open the folder that we just created, SAP UI5 walkthrough demo. Select folder, and then we have the folder open. On the right hand side, you can chat with the Cursor AI, ask questions, give it prompts that you want. The SAP UI5 is a JavaScript framework that is built by SAP for creating enterprise web applications like the screens that you see in SAP Fiori. So to run the SAP UI5 locally, we need to use the UI5 CLI, and this UI5 CLI is a command line tool that will help us to create, to help us to save, and it will help us to manage the UI5 projects locally. So the first thing we need to do is to go to the terminal, and then we install it globally by using the command If you go to the walkthrough, you also see this. You can use npm install global at UI5//CLI, and you hit on enter. So this is installing the CLI locally on our machine, so it will take some few minutes. So this will make the UI5 command available everywhere on our computer. So the next thing we need to do, remember that this is the root folder. This folder that we created is called the root folder, and inside this root folder we are going to create a file called package.json, and think of package.json as the identity card of our project. So the package.json file, it describes what the application is and what version it has and which commands we can run. So what you do is to create a new file. You can see here, new file, and then call the name of the file package.json. Hit on enter, and then you can copy the syntax from the walkthrough. Okay, now so this is what we have in our package.json file. You have the version, you have the description, so you can say the UI5 Quickstart tutorial, and the script. So in the script section we have this starts UI5 save index.html, and this simply means that when we type npm start, like if you type npm start in the command line, it should open our application in the browser and load the index.html file. Okay, so that is what this does. Now the next thing, the next folder we need to create is a folder called the web app folder. So go to your root folder, click on new folder, and let's call it web app. This web app folder will contain everything that runs in the browser. This will include the HTML files, the JavaScript file, and the XML files. Okay, so inside this web app we are going to add an index.html file. So this is the main entry page of our app. So if you go here and then say new file, let's say index.html. If you are using Cursor AI for the first time, it's going to give you auto completion. If you press an exclamation and then you do a tab, it gives us the syntax for the HTML and the structure. Okay, so now we are going to fill in what we need. So for the time being, let's give it a title, and let's call the title for the HTML page SAP UI5 Quickstart tutorial. Okay, all right, so we have a title, and then we don't need this right now. Let's move this. And so one thing we should know about the HTML file is that this is the main entry page of our application, right? So since we already defined it in our package.json, when we use UI5 save, the index.html file will open first, and it will have the title on the title bar, SAP UI5 Quickstart tutorial. So now the HTML file, what it also has is what we call the script tag, which is also called SAP UI5 Bootstrap. So we can call and we can write this like this, the script. Yeah, so this is a script tag, and the script tag has an ID, SAP UI Bootstrap. SAP UI Bootstrap, right? And inside this will load the SAP UI5 library, and it will tell us which part we'll use, such as the sap.m library for mobile controls. And I'll just go ahead and copy the rest of the Bootstrap syntax from the walkthrough, so you can do likewise, and I will explain what this does. Okay, now you see here we have our script which has the ID SAP UI Bootstrap. Like I explained earlier, the SAP UI5 Bootstrap, it will load the UI5 library. Okay, it will load all the library for the UI5 that we'll be using, and it will also define the what's called namespace, so which is UI5.quickstart. So this is how UI5 organizes your files logically, so like a folder system that the framework can understand. Finally, the next thing we're going to do is to create the index.js file. Okay, so inside the web folder we create a JavaScript file, new file, and call it index.js, right? So the index.js file is where the magic happens. Yeah, so it contains few lines of JavaScript that will create a button and shows a hello world or hello SAP UI5 when we click on that button. Okay, so the first thing that we see in the index.js file is the UI5 module. So you can see sap.ui5. We have sap.ui5.define. So this statement will register the UI5 module, and then the next thing we need to do, so we open this bracket, and then inside this bracket we enter the square brackets. So all our programs will be in the square bracket, and this with a semicolon. Okay, so then right in the sap.ui5.ui, not UI5 rather, .ui. So inside this we're going to define or import two things, a button and a message toast. So here we're going to say sap/m/button. Okay, so this will import the button that we're going to use in the index.html page, and then we need a message toast to display a text when it is pressed. So we use sap/m, so this /m/message toast. Okay, all right. So in the square bracket is where we define the things we import to the index.js file. So after that we create a function. So we're going to be using arrow function to create function. So in previous tutorials that was done, you create a function by using function and then define your function, but here we are going to be using arrow function, which is a shorthand for creating functions. So inside the function we are saying is going to take two parameters, which is a button and then the message toast. So the message toast will display our text that we will display the text of interest, which is hello SAP UI5. So the arrow function is like this, and then we put our curly brackets to enter the functionality of the function or the logic for the function. Now we are going to be using useStrict. So the purpose of useStrict is that it will execute our code in a strict mode. So strict mode means that you cannot use a variable that you have not defined, for example. So that's one advantage of using the strict mode. All right, so we are still continuing to write the logic for the index.js file. So then we use the keyword new to create the button. So new button, you put your brackets, and then inside the bracket we have our curly brackets. Okay, so what happened in the button? So the button should have what we call a text. So the text will show ready. Okay, so we create a method called press, and what happens when we press the button? So we're going to call on message toast. So message toast basically is like a non-disruptive pop-up. So this will display our text for a short period before it automatically disappears, so unless the user wants to interact with it. So this is a common UI element framework in SAP UI5. So let's call on message toast, and then we say show.show. So the message toast is going to show, okay, hello SAP UI5. So normally you type hello SAP world, but yeah, or hello world, but let's use this. Okay, and then end this with a semicolon. Now we need to connect the JavaScript to our index.html file. So by using .placeAt, we are going to reference the ID that has been declared in the body of the HTML file. So .placeAt, we're going to say create this an ID content. Now if you go to the index.html file, in the body there's a class called SAP UI5 and the ID is content. So this means that whatever we've created in our index.js file is now connected to the index.html file. So when we run our HTML file, we have an interaction with the JavaScript logic. So in summary, so what we've done so far is that we load two UI controls, so which is a button and a message toast. You know what a button is. A message toast is a pop-up message that comes and then disappears. And then after we've created what will be displayed on the button, which is a text, and then we created a function that now calls on the message toast to show the text hello SAP UI5. Now if you still do not understand this, you can use Cursor AI and said explain the index.js file. So let's see. Typo index.js sets up a minimal SAP UI component that renders a button and wires up a toast message. So it goes ahead to explain the sap.ui.define. It loads the SAP UI models button and message toast. Then the callback receives these models as button and message toast. What does use strict means? It enforces the strict mode inside the module, and a new button instance is created. So you can see new button instance is created with the label ready. So this text is the label, and its press handler calls message toast.show hello SAP UI5. So clicking the button pops a toast notification. So toast notification means that it comes up and then goes. Then we use the .placeAt content. This will render the button into the document object manipulation element whose ID is content. So this content ID is defined in the index.html file. You see it here. So conventionally we use content here and then you reference it in index.html. Yeah, before we test it, we need to create a new file called manifest.json. So, and this file will be in the web app folder. So this web app folder, create it inside here and we call it manifest.json file. Yeah, so it is also known as the app descriptor. So here all the application specific configuration options which we will introduce or will use in this tutorial will be added to this file. So you can go ahead to copy it or you can type it out. So in the manifest.json file we have the version, and sap.app we have the ID UI5.quickstart. Okay, now let's go to the let's do the final setup. We go to the terminal and then we execute npm I. You execute this command to install the UI5 CLI. Okay, so let's see if the Cursor AI can help us fix this. So I'll just go ahead to highlight this error that we have here, assuming I don't know what this is. So let's highlight this and do Ctrl C, which copies it, and go to the command here and how to fix this error message, and then Ctrl V. So let's enter this. It's planning next moves. So let's see where the error is from. So the JSON parser hit the end of the file away. So the Cursor AI helped us to rewrite package.json. So it now contains valid JSON metadata and an empty dev dependencies object, which we'll fill up later when we need them. So with that in place, we can rerun npm i/d at UI5/CLI, and the install should proceed normally. So let's do that again. Okay, hit on enter. So now you see that it is installing correctly. So this is one of the advantages of using the Cursor AI to help us fix errors and makes our work productive. So most times setups takes a lot of time for beginners, and with Cursor AI it could help you fix these errors. Following the UI5 walkthrough, on the command execute UI5 init. Okay, so let's do that. npx UI5 use open, let me do UI5 init first. npx UI5 init. Okay, so this will create the UI5.yaml file. So, and then the next command we need to run is to execute UI5 use open UI5. So we use npx UI5 use open UI5. Yeah, so let's fix this. Why is this error and how to fix it? Okay, so the next thing is that we need to get item web app manifest.json to see where our error is coming from, because it's saying the manifest.json for project UI5.quickstart has an unexpected end. So we click on run to figure out where the error is coming from in our manifest.json file. So we checked for the length and said okay, it's success, and let's see what's the next move on how to fix the manifest.json file. Okay, so now it says the npx UI5. So now npx UI5 use open UI5, and it has updated the UI5.yaml file to point the open UI5 1.142.0. So now the next step will now be to we need to still install some libraries. So let me use, that's the final step. Since we are using npx now, let me use npx UI5 add. So this will install the themes that we need to use. Yeah, so we have added frameworks, libraries, the sm.m for mobiles, and the UI.core, the layouts, the theme libraries as dependencies. So finally, we are going to run our application and see what we get. npm npm start, so that we can see what we have in our index.html. So UI5 serve, so it's running using open UI5 version. So it automatically opened the index.html file in our browser. Okay, so now if you have a situation like this when you are not getting output, the reason is because all the changes we have made so far, we have not saved them. So we can go over to file and say save all. So when you do save all, we go back to the browser again, and alright, so now we got an error, uncaught error in promise, failed to execute, and then .placeAt is not a function. So let's go back. I think we made a mistake there, so let's check our code. So that's in our index.js file. Okay, so index.js file .placeAt. Let's see if Cursor AI can help us to fix this. So I just copy the error from our console. Okay, and let's see, Cursor AI will help us fix this. Let's say copy why. I always ask the why and how to fix this error, then paste it right here and click on enter. Yeah, oh okay, typo. So you see that the art, you can see .placeAt content and .placeAt, they are not the same. Typographical error, which is important. So let's say keep all, so it keeps the corrected one, and remember to save. Let's save again, save, and this time let's go refresh the page, open the console to see if there is an error that pops up. And now we have our first code, we have our first interactive UI app. So we have the ready button right here. So when you click on ready, it prints hello SAP UI5 as a message toast. So it's using a dark theme dark background because of the dependencies we install. Ready, click, hello, SAP UI5. Okay, so now in the next step is the steady. We're going to be adding structures. So instead of having everything jump packed, so we're going to be creating things like XML views, app views, container, and so on and so forth. So if you have not subscribed to this channel, don't forget to subscribe. Okay, now that we are ready, last time we did the interactive UI. When we click on this ready button, it displays hello SAP UI5. So let's go to the second step. So we are in the Quickstart tutorial, and the second step is the steady. Okay, so in the steady step, what we are going to do is that in the button, we are going to have a steady here and then display hello app or hello SAP UI5 app. And what this means is that we are going to have some optimization, and instead of having all our code jump packed inside one file, we are now going to separate our logic, which is the JavaScript logic, from the UI structure, which is the layout. So now what we are going to do next is this. We are going to edit our index.js file. In our index.js file, we are going to load something called XML View. So a view is like the HTML template of our application that is written in XML format. Okay. All right. So first we go into our web app, the folder web app, and then we create a new file called app.view.xml. A new file name is app.view.xml. View have MVC view, and then we close this /MVC view, close this. So capital V. So and inside this view, we are going to connect a view to what we call a controller. In simple terms, controls the behavior of our application. Okay, so we are going to call on the controller in the view. So we have the keyword controller name equals UI5.quickstart.app. So this should be in quotation because it's the name of our controller, or we are referencing our controller. So there are other things we need to write here, like display block equals true. And then we are going to, anyway, for demo purposes, let's copy the contents from the XML view. So in subsequent videos, I'm going to be explaining what everything does. So in our view, we have the controller name, which is UI5.quickstart.app, and the display block, we set it true. So here, this is where the UI controls are located in this library. So we use the bread and butter controls from sap.m. Okay. And then what's the title of this view? Like the title page, we have it as my app. So then we have a button. So the button will have the text steady, like the label, and we are calling on a function from our controller, which is called press. Then the type of the text, emphasized, and the class, we give it a class name for this button, and we give it a class SAP UI small margin. Okay, so when we save this, control save. So after creating the view, remember we have referenced the controller name, so we need to create a controller where we will define this function .onPress functionality. Okay, so this one is the presentation logic, which is now declared or defined in an XML views. So let's go ahead to create the controller. So still inside this web app folder, we create a new file called app.controller.js. So this controller, which is now defined now as the app.controller.js, contains the application logic. It will tell the application when the button is pressed, show a message hello app. Okay, so let's see what is in the app.controller.js. App.controller.js is similar startup or structure to how we define index.js. We're going to have sap.ui.define. We're going to have some libraries here. So let's go ahead. So we have sap.ui.define. Then you open your brackets, and inside this bracket we have the square brackets. So put a semicolon at the end. Every other thing goes in right here. All right, so this square brackets, inside the square brackets is where we define the libraries. Okay, so we can say sap/ui/core/mvc/controller. So we are saying this is the controller. We are calling the controller library, and then we have sap/m/message toast. Remember the message toast, it displays the message as a prompt and then disappears. So after you have called on the libraries, you put a comma here and then create a function that has parameters controller, and also takes in the parameter message toast, and this is an arrow function. So now we have our curly brackets to define the arrow function, and we are using useStrict to run our code in strict mode, and end this with a semicolon. So inside our controller, we are going to be creating the functions. So to create the functions or the logic, we are going to extend the base controller. So what we do is we say return controller.extend, UI5.quickstart.app. So this is what we are extending, and you have to actually put a comma here. And then, so what is the extension? The extension is we are going to be adding the functions. So one of the functions that we need to create is the onPress function, which we defined, or which we called in the app view.xml here, that when you press the button, so what happens? So we are defining that onPress function here. onPress, put onPress. Okay, then we have the curly brackets. What should happen? So when you press the button, we call on the message toast dot show hello app. Okay, and then we end this with the semicolon. All right, so here we go. We have created the controller app.controller.js file, and finally what we need to do is that we need to go into our index.js file to integrate the view that we have created inside the index.js file. So what this means is we are going to remove this instance of button that we created, remove all this, including these libraries that we called, because our app.controller.js already has the libraries, so we don't need them here. So what we're going to do here is that in the index.js file, we are going to tell UI5 to load something called an XML view. So that way we do it like this. Square bracket is missing, put a comma here. Okay, so we say sap/ui/core/mvc/XML view. So this is like the HTML template of our app. Okay, now we are going to create the function, the arrow function, and then it is called XML view, and then curly brackets. So inside here we're going to say useStrict, and then end with a semicolon. Okay, so now we name the view UI5.quickstart.app. So how to do that? We are going to say XML view.create brackets, then curly brackets, XML view.create, open the, then the name of the view. So we say view name will be UI5.quickstart.app. So UI5 will look for the file named app.view.xml, and so after loading this view, it will now place this view in our index.html file. And to do this, we said .then create the arrow function .then oview dot place at content. So this is the ID that we define in the body, and this with semicolon. So this is what we have in our index.js file. So when we now go to the index.html file, everything is still the same in the index.html file. There are no changes to be made because the ID that we called is still the ID we used in the index.js file. So in the index.js file now we have created a view, and the view name is UI5.quickstart.app. So if we go to the view, before the view is placed in the HTML page, the app.view is called, and when we go to the app.view, it has a container called app, and inside that container we have the title of the page, we have a button. And so for this view, the logic for this view is defined in the app.controller. So in the app.controller we called in some libraries, the controller, the message toast, and then extended the base class of that library. So by extending, we reference the quickstart.app and said created a function for it on press. So when the button is pressed, message.show hello app. So you need to actually understand the flow of the program, and this is the best way to know where you are. And if you want to debug, okay, where is this coming from and how can this be fixed? That's why I'm explaining and reiterating over these facts. Alright, so now we can save our app. Of course, the functionality will still be similar to what we did in the ready state, except now that we have a more structured program where we have views and controllers. So let's save all, and we can just say npm start. So this will just directly load the index.html in our browser. So yeah, let's see. Let me open the console in case we have any errors. Alright, now this is what we have. We have my app as a title for this view, and then you have a button with the text steady. So if we click on the steady, we have a message toast that say hello app. So congratulations, you've created your very first app. And now the next thing for the quick start tutorial is the step 3, which is go. Alright, see you in the next video. And if you have not subscribed to this channel, please hit the like button, and if you like this content, subscribe and also share with someone who wants to learn SAP UI5. The final step for the quick start tutorial before we go into the walkthrough. So we now have the steady. So if you click on the steady button, it displays the message toast hello app. So finally we go to the step 3, which is the go, and this is what we are going to achieve. So this is more like expanding the application. So it is time to go, and we'll make the application look more like a real SAP UI5 SAP Fiori application. And then we are going to add another page and include more UI5 libraries, such as SAP UI layout, which will show the layout, and the SAP.tnt for advanced controls. So the first page now will have a button with SAP icon. This SAP icon, and it will display the text go. So when we click on it, we navigate to a second page, and this new page called intro. So this is the goal. And then on the second page, we're going to experiment with layout controls such as block layout, panel, icon, flexbox, switch, and link. So this gives us powerful building blocks to design very modern and responsive apps. All right. So the first thing that we need to do is to introduce the libraries, UI5 libraries, in our index.html file. So right here you see data -SAP-UI libs. So here have the bread and butter library for UI controls, and so right here we can add the extended libraries. So we can say sap.ui.layout. So this is for for layout, and then we can also add SAP.tnt. This is for advanced controls, as I mentioned earlier. And yeah, so this is the only change that we need to make in the index.html. So now we have actually spiced up our application by adding these two more libraries for our UI controls, and these are the two libraries that we added. Next, we go to the app.view file, app.view, that is my app view page. And right here also, we are going to define two new libraries in the view tag, okay? So let's add those libraries in this app.view file, or rather 3 libraries. So where do we add the libraries? So below this point here, let me just copy and paste this. So we need to remove this here, remove this here, and then close it right here. And then in our app, we're going to give an ID called app, ID equals app. And for the button, we are going to also make some new changes. Instead of the text steady, we are going to replace it with an icon. So we get the SAP UI5 icon as SAP/icon : 2/SAP-UI5. So this is how we can reference the icon. And then we are going to have a text label equals go. Okay, then we still have our function press. That's when we press the button, something happens. And the rest of the changes to the code, I will get that from the walkthrough. You can also get this code from the walkthrough, and then I paste it right here. Yeah, so this is just what I explained earlier. Now we'll be looking at the layout controls such as block layouts. So yeah, don't worry much about the details now. We'll explain them in the next tutorials. And then finally we update the app.controller.js. So inside the app.controller.js, we're going to add 2 more methods or functions. We already have the onPress, and then we're going to add the onInit. So this runs automatically when the controller starts. And then we're going to add the onChange. This will handle the toggle switch. Okay, so we always start from the libraries. We're going to add a new library, SAP/UI/model/JSON, and then /JSON model. Okay, so inside our function, we're going to add another parameter, which is JSON model. Yeah, so we're going to also extend the onPress functionality. So now the message toast, we're going to change what is going to display. So message toast is going to say hello UI5. So now, instead of just to display this message as a toast, we are now going to add the functionality that the onPress function will also trigger the navigation to the intro page. So how do we do this? We fetch the app control by its ID. So we are going to say this dot by ID. Remember the ID that we gave? The ID is called app. If you go to the app view right here, you see app ID equals to app, right? So we fetch the app control by its ID and then instruct it to navigate by calling the this method. So we can say dot to open bracket and say this dot by ID. So intro, close this. Okay, so you see what it does here. We have the intro right here. So when we click on, let's go to the app controller.js. So when we click on the onPress function now, it does not just display the text hello UI5, it also triggers the navigation to the intro page, and the intro page has the ID intro. So now let's also add another function called the onInit function. So the onInit method, it's called automatically when the controller is initialized. So usually it has a JSON model with some text that is located with key features. So we put a comma here to add another function. So we can say onInit, like on initialization. So have a curly bracket, and then what we are doing right here, it defines a simple JSON model with some text. So we're going to say this dot get view dot set model. So this is how we're going to define the JSON model, and say new JSON model. Then we open another bracket. So inside this bracket we have the curly brackets where we define the JSON model and say features. Right here we have square brackets. So we're gonna say enterprise ready web toolkit. You can put a comma to this. Then we have powerful development concepts, then put a comma here. Then we have feature rich UI controls, then we put a comma right here. Then we have the next consistent user experience, put a comma right here. Then we have free and open source, put a comma right here. And finally we have resources across browsers and devices. So what we do here is that we display this text on the second page, okay, using data binding. Finally, we make the panel in the lower part of the view to be interactive by adding the onChange event. So right here we say onChange, and then say event. So this is so we add the onChange event to the switch that will be defined there. And so we say onChange event curly bracket, then say const b state is equal to event dot get parameter, and then we say get the parameter state, close this now, right? And say this dot by id ready dot set visible b state, close this. So yeah, this is what we have, and let's save this app.controller.js. You can as well also copy the code from the walkthrough, and I'll also upload this on GitHub for you to get the codes and how we proceed. So let's save file, go to file, and then save all. Now we have saved all, and let's go to our file, and right here we can just refresh the page. Yeah, so after refreshing we have this. So we have my app, and we have the go text with the SAP icon. So when we click on this, it has the message toast displayed, and then we have the second page, navigated to the second page that has this is UI5. And remember, this was the JSON features that we defined right here. So these were the features that we defined for our second page, and you can see them right here. And likewise, you can see the panel in the lower part of the view that is interactive by us adding the onChange event. So you can see. Alright, so this is the Quickstart tutorial, and if you actually succeeded in getting this started, then congratulations, and we will continue with the rest of the tutorial. If you are new to this channel, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and in subsequent tutorials try as much as possible to explain in more details all the concepts that I'll be using and all the syntax I'll be using. And see you in the next video.